does look like the shirt's on.
Good evening, everyone. I just was told by one of our commissioners that it's 7 o'clock, so it's time to start this meeting. So at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and for everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for 10 seconds in your own thoughts and the things that you manage in your lives. Thank you. You may be seated. Deanne, would you like to call the roll?
Commissioner Hausberg,
Here.
Vice Mayor McCall,
Here.
Commissioner Hanna,
Here.
Commissioner Hoofnagel,
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here. Thank you, Deanne. With that, we'll go to our presentations. And first, we're going to have Sergeant Harvey come forward, if you'd like, from the report of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. We always have the sheriff here, and 15 minutes before the meeting, if anyone would like to talk to the sheriffs privately, and also the report is online. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. As you can see from the report last month, from the stats that were provided from strategic planning, there was a total of 13 people that were arrested in the city of Indian Rocks Beach for a total of 15 charges. The majority of those arrests remain to be DUI arrests, and they remain to be non-residents that are just traveling through the city. The other significant arrest that took place was a grand theft auto arrest that took place during that month. And again, that was not a resident of the city. That was just a person that sold a vehicle at another location and was caught here, apprehended here in the city of Indian Rocks Beach. Do any of the, does the mayor or the vice mayor or the council have any questions about the report from last month that was provided?
Does anyone address any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. 1B is the report of the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District, which is also online. So if you'd like to view it, you can find it online. With that, we're going to go to public comments. And I'd like to just make a comment before I give our paragraph about how public comments run. Recently, we've had some issues with individuals not following the rules and the decorum of the commission and the commission body. So I would like to pay close attention today to what I explained about how we run a meeting, and that if you come up and you want to address the commission, you address the commission as a whole and not to single out one of the commissioners. You have 3-minute time limit, and any member of the audience may come forward. Please give your name and the address and state any comment or concern that he or she may have regarding any matter which the commission has control of, excluding agenda items. All statements made to the commission shall be made to the city commission as a whole, not directed to an individual commission member, as I stated previously, and no personal or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall take place between the speaker and the city commission. And with that, if there's anyone who would like to come forward at this time, please do.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Hi. It's nice to meet you all. I'm Danny Huggins. I'm actually a new resident here in Indian Rocks Beach. I live down on
What is your name again? She can barely hear you.
I'm so sorry. Danny Huggins.
Can you just state your address, please?
1 Windrush Boulevard. So right outside of.
Can you take your mask off?
Yeah, of
Thanks.
course.
Just
Sorry
so
about
we
that,
can hear.
guys.
So you're a new resident?
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome. State your name.
No worries, Danny.
And your last name?
Huggins. Like a hug and some gin.
There you go. She lives on 1 Windrush.
Well, I just wanted to introduce myself first off and say thank you guys for the work that you do. I particularly have a love and vested interest for any type of socioeconomic enhancements, so I do appreciate you guys. And I wanted to come sit in and enjoy the meeting and what you guys provide for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thanks for coming tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time during public comment? Hearing none, we will close the public comment, and we will go to agenda item number 3, which are the reports, and we'll start with the report of our wonderful city attorney. Do you have a report tonight, Mr. Moore?
Briefly, it's been, I've been working closely with the town manager, or city manager, on a few issues. In addition to that, the legislative session, though not yet started, we're already beginning to track the bills that are being filed, and how they're going to be working their way through committee in advance of session. Tracking closely, of course, as always, the short-term rental statutes, and we'll update you as more substantive things develop, if anything, in that regard, or others, along with the issues being discussed this evening. As far as, service and events in the community, this week I'll be, or rather next week, I'll be traveling to Daytona Shores to lecture to the Florida Association of City and County Clerks on public records, ethics, and sunshine laws, as we otherwise do, and my friend just did this weekend in Kissimmee. So continuing to remain engaged in those issues, and as always, if you need anything, I remain available.
Does anyone have any questions for Randy tonight? Okay, we will move on to our city manager, Greg Menz. Greg, do you have a report tonight?
I do. Let the record reflect that Cookie didn't refer to me as the wonderful city manager.
My favorite city, CM.
On a more serious note, the last few days, unfortunately, we learned the passing of Frank Waters. Frank has been was on our Finance and Budget Committee since 2014. The city sent his wife a card, and we also installed a memorial brick at the museum. And I want someone to recognize Frank for his years of service on the Finance and Budget Committee. Code enforcement report, Code Enforcement Division, which is one full-time and a part-time employee, wrote 38 parking citations, 3 notices to appear, 10 notice of violation letters, and 3 courtesy letters. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. One thing we started about 4 years ago was flying the Breast Cancer Awareness flag at City Hall and the baseball field, and that's up for the month. You'll see those out front. Another thing we have inside is, we put up the seasonal banners. We have several now that we put up, and we've added those in the auditorium now. So when you come in, whatever banners are up along Bill Boulevard and Walsingham will be up in the auditorium. And probably the biggest thing I have tonight is, part of the adopted budget is for us to go through the process of updating what's been referred to as the city's master drainage plan. And of course, we're mandated by the state now to do that, and it needs to be done. We currently have a contract, and had it for years, with Civil Service. I'm going to talk about your company first. Civil Service served us well. They've done work for over a decade for the city. And one thing I'd like to get just some informal input from the commission on is that I really can go about the update of the drainage study in a couple different ways. One is we can use Civil Serve, and one of the benefits of using Civil Serve is that they're already under contract, and plus they've done a lot of drainage work for us, so they already have maps and things where we replace drainage pipes and things throughout the city. Or the other option is I can put out an RFP and open it up to engineering firms wide and far, and they would submit a proposal. We do like we do on any other RFP. Then Dean and I and probably a couple of staff members would review them and then bring a recommendation back. So I'd like to get just if you have an opinion about comfort level either way is fine, because I need to get that process started. This will be a very thorough study. It's going to be expensive to do this. Just for our small town, we're looking at $100,000 plus to get this done. And one of the reasons for that is, I've been here a little over 8 years, and just when I think I've figured out kind of where the pipes are and drainage issues are, and whatever, we learned something new. For example, last week we have a property down at 22nd and Bay Boulevard, which is close to where I used to live, and there's going to be some townhouses built on that vacant lot that just sold, and they were doing some survey work, and they used like these rods to locate things. Well, they hit a piece of concrete And we have a drain that if you stood there and looked at it, you just think it was a standard city drain. It's a city drain, and it basically dumps into like a septic tank box that goes nowhere. So we find surprises like that on occasion, and that's all the more reason to update the comprehensive drainage study. And step back for just 1 second if I can, is that, y'all were gracious enough 2 or 3 years ago to allocate money every year for us to clean up drainage pipes and boxes throughout town. And one thing we're doing now is, as we do that, we're putting video cameras in the pipe to see if they're open, collapsed, it's complete the situation. And that's how we found this, was we dropped a camera down there and it rolled off the end of the box, the drainage box, and it just dropped. And the company that we use, those cameras are valued at like about $30,000. And I think they panicked and we took the backhoe down there. And anyway, so the point being is that we're gonna learn a lot going through this process because Dean, who's been here for a long time, was not aware of that situation. So that's the importance of going through this, and it'll benefit us long term. And then based on that, y'all, the commission as a whole, can work with the staff to see how we allocate money in the future to do drainage projects. So that's a smart way to do that. So back to what I was asking you is that I can go the direction of working with Civil Serve, or we can do an RFP, and I just would like to kind of get your opinions, if you have one, about if you have any.
Well, does like Civil Serve have the latest technologies in order to be able to solve our problems?
Well, I'll ask Mark.
Okay, I mean, that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
He's gonna be doing a presentation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, oh,
Hi, my name's Mark Frederick. I'm a civil engineer. I work for Civil Serve in Lakeland. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we're using the latest technology available for this type of study. So we'd be looking at using ICPRs kind of for the interconnected pond modeling, and then also for the storm sewer systems. That's a different product program we use as well.
Mhm.
Anyone else have any questions for Mark?
I mean, obviously, to go through the RFP process, it's long, it's grueling, it takes a lot of time, and then a lot of evaluation, and, I mean, I guess it just depends on if you guys can give us a great price or not, and chase us away from putting an RFP on the street.
Well, the good thing about the contract we have with
Yeah,
Civil Service is that we have their hourly rates.
yeah.
So we know what that is.
Mhm.
So they would, like we do on smaller projects, they would just put together a written proposal. Dean and I would review it, and Randy Moore would probably get involved in that too.
Okay,
And then if it all looks right based on their hourly rates, we think it's, market competitive, and we have a pretty good idea of what that is, and we would just enter into an agreement and start work.
mhm.
Anyone else? Phil, excuse me.
I can't say enough about Hetty and her organization. Anytime I've called, they've been right there and Johnny on the spot. The only question that I would have, are we required under any legal obligation to put out an RFP?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my vote.
Do you want
That's-
consensus? Would be, how does everyone feel? We'll do a consensus, is everybody for us using? Everybody okay? Okay. Fine. Thank you. Anything else, Greg?
That's all I have.
Okay. We'll go to the city commission, and we will start with Commissioner Hoffnick.
The only comment I have is I have 2 jobs. I am the chairman of the Oktoberfest event, which is jointly supported by the city and Action 2000, and that'll be October 23rd. So please come, tell your friends and family, and come enjoy some coastal Oktoberfest fun. Thank you.
Ed, what's the time on that?
12 to 6.
12 to 6, okay.
50-50 raffle with Cookie Kennedy as the salesperson.
It's too much. Vice Mayor Joe?
This is really the only thing I have is right on the heels of Oktoberfest. It's actually going to be a week earlier this year. The Taste of IRB will be back on at Chickasee Park. Hours are going to be 3 to 9. So it's going to be nice to get back and see all the
What's the date?
The 6th of November.
Okay.
And, yeah, just going around talking to all the restaurants. You know, everybody's, as we all know, everybody's struggling, right? So it's going to be nice to have those out there. They're making a concerted effort to get out to the event because they've done it for years and years and years. So we want to have a great event, patronize all the restaurants that are coming out. And obviously, you know, if this is your 14 or 15, something like that,
Do you have any booth space yet left?
I can ask Bill Dotson. I'm not in charge of this space.
Okay.
Or I can ask Ed.
What's the time, Joe?
3 to 9.
3 to 9, okay, so that would be November 6th, 3 to 9 for the Taste of IRB.
Late lunch or early dinner.
Commissioner Hannah?
No, I just support both the organizations and look forward to attending.
Are you going to be taking pictures at the
I
couple?
am the official photographer.
Great, honey. Phil takes great pictures, so that'll be awesome. Commissioner Denise?
I have nothing to report this evening.
And I also want to mention that on November 6th, the same as the Taste of IRB, we will have the coastal cleanup for Greentown kids. November 13th will be the women's tea, and we haven't had it in 2 years, and we have several of our entrepreneur women who will be putting the event together this year, so I think it's going to be a great event. And we all will be sending out social media pieces for the women's tea, so that you know that. And I think that it will wrap it up with all of the reports. And we'll go to agenda item 4, additions and deletions. Are there any tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And before we vote on the consent agenda, I would like to have her come up to the podium and just introduce yourself, because you are a consent agenda item number E, just so that everybody can meet her.
Hi, I'm Herb. Herb Sylvester, 369 12th Avenue, in Ross Beach, resident here for 25 years. Moved away for a little bit and came back and just got done developing some homes down there. Semi-retired. Adrian said you guys needed some help, so here I am.
Very good.
Beautiful.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for volunteering.
Yes, thank you for volunteering. And with that, we'll go to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Before we move, Madam Mayor, there are 5 items on the consent agenda. They are items A through E. Item A, approval of the September 8, 2021 Special City Commission meeting minutes. Item B, approval of the September 14, 2021 regular City Commission meeting minutes. Item C, approval of the September 22, 2021 Special City Commission meeting minutes. Item D, confirming action taken during the September 22, 2021 Special City Commission meeting. And item E, appointing Herb Sylvester to the Planning and Zoning Board as a regular board member for a 2-year term expiring May 31st, 2023. These are all 5 items on the consent agenda, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Randy. And with that, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on now to public hearings. We have no public hearings today. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, our other legislative matters. We do not have any legislative matters tonight. And with that, we'll move to our work session item for discussion only, 8A. And I will turn this over to Greg, which is the update of the FEMA flood insurance rate map.
Okay, thanks. A few meetings back, we had a representative from the county that came to talk to the commission about a study that the county did for flood zones and flooding and base elevations and all that fun stuff. And I wanted to make this presentation as simple as we can keep it, because this can be a very confusing thing. But to make it more confusing, one of the things I handed to you right from the meeting is this piece of paper that says RISC 2.0. Tonight, we will be talking briefly about the options that y'all have as a commission to either to stick with the new updated FEMA maps or to go with the county study and what that reflects. RISC 2.0 is the new methodology that FEMA's come up with to base what the fees are, the rates that people pay for insurance. Everything you talk about tonight will have nothing to do with insurance rates. So as we talk about the FEMA maps and the county maps, although I know this is a concern, and I think the last I heard, Cookie may have a better update on this, there's a bill in Congress to delay the implementation of 2.0 because there's concerns about the impact on property owners and those kind of things. So as we talk through this, I just wanted to kind of set the stage that when we talk about the differences between the results of the FEMA map updates and the county map updates, that's, no matter what you do here tonight, has no impact on rates because that's a whole different separate beast that FEMA's come up with how they calculate rates. So I just wanted to, but this has some good information. It has, that you go to the county's website and get more information. So I just want to kind of lay that out there. Mark Fredericks, who you already heard from briefly, is going to come up and walk you through this. And what I've asked him to do is, and it was in your packet, is that we took they took random properties in the city, and we're going to go through that briefly, and it'll show you what the previous FEMA map requirements were as far as the building elevation, we build a structure, what the now adopted and implemented updated FEMA map requirement is, and then what the county requirement, and we'll talk more about that soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for the lead-in, Mr. Mims, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to speak with you about the changes to the flood maps. So again, my name is Mark Frederick. I'm an engineer at Civil Serve. I'm also a certified floodplain manager. So I guess just wanted to start with, I know you guys have already kind of seen a presentation as Mr. Mims had mentioned from the county. A little bit of overview of just kind of the difference of what we're talking about here. There's the FEMA flood insurance rate maps, and they have recently been updated. And we're talking about a comparison between those and a separate vulnerability assessment that Pinellas County has taken on and administered. This slide here really just kind of shows kind of the two maybe key differences between those different studies is that the FEMA firm map updates are based on storms up through 2012 were the ones that they used for their synthetic storm distributions. And then it's also based off of the LIDAR, which is topographic ground elevation data that's dated 2007. So the Pinellas vulnerability assessment uses newer storms and newer ground elevation information. And as Mr. Mims had mentioned, we were just kind of asked to look at a couple of, we picked 4 parcels in the city, and in these slides here, we just kind of walk through what the current effective FEMA flood insurance rate map elevation is. So that's the first box there. So for this one, that's the 8 feet, and that's in flood zone AE, which means it has an elevation associated with it, which is 8. And so the comparison to the Pinellas vulnerability assessment, their 100-year elevation, and there's 2 numbers that are listed there. So that's actually one of the differences in how the model is created. It's kind of finer tuned, I guess, as far as the step of the elevation increase across that parcel. So it's a range from 12.2 feet to 13 feet being the higher elevation on that one. So that's really the comparison. It's the current FEMA base flood elevation, again, it's 8 for this particular property compared to the Pinellas vulnerability assessment, which ranges from 12.2 to 13.0. And then just as another point of comparison for reference, the previous FEMA flood insurance rate map elevation was also split. It was a range. There was 2 elevations associated with a particular piece of property, and it was 11 to 12 feet. So even between the FEMA elevations for this one, it dropped from basically that 11 to 12 down to 8 feet. So.
Do you have any idea why it's dropped?
Right, so the reason for the drop would really just kind of be between the difference in the modeling approaches or techniques, yeah. So you can see they use just different models and different data to support that. So also there's the LIDAR. So that was kind of like the key differences there. It's different model, different storms, different ground elevations.
All right. What is the Pinellas VA, what does it mean? Do we have to incorporate that into our building codes or something, or what is it for?
So the VA stands for the Vulnerability Assessment. So
I'm just saying, yes, but what is it for? Do we incorporate it into our municipal codes, or is it just something the county puts out and says this is what we think it should be?
So yeah, you can, right? So that's kind of, we're jumping ahead, right? So like kind of the end slide there, I guess, as far as like the options, right? So it's basically, two options that you guys have available to you are to basically, kind of the do nothing option is kind of the new FEMA effective flood insurance rate maps. Those are already in effect, right? So like the city's code that's already on the books that incorporates the latest revision of those maps. So that's currently what's being in effect. So if you had a preference to kind of utilize the higher elevations associated with the Pinellas vulnerability assessment, those elevations, then you would have to modify your code of ordinances accordingly.
That give you the short answer to that, is that if you go with the county's study, we would adopt an ordinance to adopt the.
Do we have any requirement or standing agreement with the county that we have an interest in adopting their?
Go ahead, continue, Mark.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you, Mark.
No, that's okay. So the next property we looked at is 377 La Hacienda Drive. So again, just kind of stepping through the comparisons, the current effective FEMA base flood elevation for this piece is 9 feet. And again, the Pinellas vulnerability assessment elevations range across this one, not very much, just a tenth difference, 11.2 to 11.3. And that is, again, just as a point of reference, the previous FEMA elevation was 10 for this one, so it went down by a foot compared to the FEMA maps. And the third one was 453 Harbor Drive South. So the current effective base flood elevation is 9, and the Pinellas vulnerability assessment elevation is 11, and that compares to 10 and 11 from the previous FEMA maps. And then the fourth one that we looked at is 2102 Beach Trail. And this one has 2-foot flood depth, so there's two zone designations on it. It's AO, which means shallow flooding, and it's characterized as 2 feet of depth. And then it's also in the BE zone, so it has an elevation associated with it of 10, and the V means that additional potential damage associated with velocity. And the Pinellas VA elevation for this one ranges from 12.4 to 13.0. And then those elevations all compared to the previous FEMA base flood elevation for this one of 11 and 12, AE, and then 12 B.
Mark, would
Yeah.
you, I'm just curious, when you said that it's different models and data in different storms, would you say, or be able to tell us if, for instance, FEMA or Pinellas County, which one would have the most current data?
So yeah, as far as the comparison between the two, the Pinellas vulnerability assessment, it looked at storms up until 2018, so that's newer than what the FEMA maps looked at. So that went up to 2012 as far as rainfall data and historical storm events. And then also the Pinellas vulnerability assessment, it's got the newer LIDAR is the ground elevation, right? So it should be pretty similar, right? Nothing has really changed as far as the roads and like that kind of stuff or whatever, but it is updated. There's a 10-year difference there, so that's going to have just newer data.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments before I go to the city manager or questions for Mark?
Sure, quick, just a couple things. So basically this would affect just, like you said, your standard flood depth for just new construction and rehab. Is that what would trigger, if they go over the 50% rule, and they would have to go up? And I guess kind of like maybe along Ed's question or maybe not. Would there be anything stopping a builder from, or a homeowner, if they felt that they wanted to follow the Pinellas VA model versus the FEMA model? They could build at 12 feet.
Yeah, the two things. One is legally, a local entity has the ability to pass a more restricted set of regulations than what the FEMA requirements are. But absolutely, if you're building your house and you want to build it 14 feet up in there instead of 12, just because your comfort level, knock yourself out.
As long as you don't go too high.
Yeah, as long as you don't go too high. Good point. I appreciate that.
Short.
Maybe not 14 feet, maybe 13 and a half.
Any questions? No. Bill?
Well, the only thing I have is that we have two different standards here, and I'm leaning toward looking more at more current data, the lighter study and so forth. But what happens if I'm with FEMA and I'm at a lower flood rate right now, or lower height for base flood? FEMA would be okay with that because if I went with Pinellas, again, I'm trying to figure what I'm trying to say, I'm sorry. In essence, there's not going to be a penalization for anybody. If I'm with FEMA, they would say, we'll say this, if you want to build here, that's up to you, pretty much.
Back to what I said is that if you know, the slides that they've given y'all tonight, if the county study, if that was in place in any Ross Beach, you would be required to build at a higher elevation than what FEMA is saying. So yeah, they would, as long as you met the FEMA standard, they wouldn't care. They'd probably be, I guess they would be happy.
But to pass IRB standards, which depending on which one we go to is what they have to build to.
Right.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Any closing remarks, Mark?
Well, yeah, just to kind of, as far as the images that we're showing here and presenting, those were all from the Pinellas County's flood information application, and this is the address for that website. So anybody can just kind of do a Google search for that and find it. You basically just kind of plug in, or you kind of look around on the map and pick whatever parcel you want to look at. If there's other properties that you're interested in doing a similar comparison for. Yeah.
I was going to say one thing, because you got the regular, you can go to FEMA and look up your flood elevation. When you go to Pinellas County, you can go to this map, and they'll tell you what the vulnerability assessment says, plus what the FEMA map says on it. So, but, I mean, so, the different elevations.
So if I'm getting this correctly, if I built to a higher standard, and since everything is risk-based in terms of, well, you're 3 feet above the water, so you're going to pay this much, but if you're 13 feet above water, that rate goes down. It seems to me that if I were building to a higher standard, my flood insurance rate would potentially be lower.
One thing that I
Go ahead.
would probably need to clear up about that is that just because you build a higher level, does not mean that your rates are going to go down. There's a lot of things that factor into that.
Yeah.
It may help you. You would think common sense would tell you that it would help you, but that doesn't necessarily help you. They factor in a lot of different things in that.
Yeah, ARC would be good.
What?
An ARC would be good. I have 2 dogs, so that gives me a start.
Anyone else with any questions? I think what I'm going to do is, Mark, I'm going to have you sit down, and I'm going to just, even though this is only a discussion item, if there's anyone, I'm going to have the public have an opportunity to speak on this if they'd like to. So I'm going to have you sit right there.
Okay, sure.
Okay. And I'm going to open the public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? You can come up now. If you have any questions or concerns. Okay, we will close the public comment then. And we're looking for some guidance for Brett.
To recap, if you want to stick with the FEMA maps that are in place, you don't do anything. If you want to go with the alternate, adopt the county's study, you would direct us to bring an ordinance back. And I will just say that we go through these review processes with FEMA and the state about flood requirements and all that. And we're gonna bring an ordinance to you anyway, because they want some clarity and some language in the land code having to do with mobile homes, of all things. So, we gotta get that done, so probably in November, December, you're gonna have the ordinance, and that's all that's gonna be, unless you add this to it. This is, it's a language clarification thing. But if you decide to go with the option D, which is the county study that they did, that'll all be rolled into that same ordinance as you would be adopting which is option D, the county ordinance.
One other question is, if you decide to go with B, the county, the immediate thought comes to mind is if I'm a builder or contractor, I'm going to have to build it higher, which is going to be more materials and labor, which is going to cause the building cost to go up.
It would, but if you went back to one of the slides and looked at what the previous FEMA regulations were, it was close to what the county is. County most of these is a little more, but there's maybe like a foot difference, not a lot of difference in it. But I mean, a foot's a foot, I'm not discounting what you're saying.
There's a cost associated, but it's
Yeah,
not going to
cost
bankrupt
associated.
anybody.
Well, I'm just want to interject too. Most of our homes are elevated. I mean, new. I think there's one that was. And, but even then, they're way above the flood,
Yeah.
base flood elevation to begin with, because they've got to have, the 8 foot to get the car in underneath. And some of them look at, well, I can build right on grade. Well, they can't because they don't have room for parking or anything. Yeah, so that's what.
Okay, that cleared it up. Thanks so much.
Any thoughts on Ed?
I think we always strive for simplicity in our ordinances, and people build above flood elevation for their own protection. And the linkage to FEMA, to me, makes sense because that has a tie-in to an insurance policy. To have an overlay, which is the county's vulnerability assessment, I think it would be nice to recommend it and let people know what the vulnerability assessment estimates are. I'm having a hard time figuring out why we want to go and have a whole set of ordinances linked to this when we're already linked to FEMA. I don't see the benefit in it, really.
Ed, what do you think about the fact that, I'm just trying to grasp everything too, how do you feel about, and the rest of the commission too, the fact that that study though is, so old compared to the one that the county did? That concerns me.
That's why I'm saying we could make people aware that, here's the FEMA requirement, that's, minimum, and by the way, the county is about a foot higher if when you're going through your planning, but once we make it an ordinance, and then we're gonna be, we're basically, if I understand it properly, we're considering mandating standards that are more severe than FEMA, and I got it, it's a better, different model, it's newer data, but people will catch up eventually, right? I mean, most of our housing stock is on grade right now anyway, right? So whether you're 10 feet underwater or 11, it doesn't really matter. But, I feel like when people go to build a new house, they're gonna look at what the FEMA requirements are, and if they see this other information, they're probably gonna go a little higher anyway. So, I don't know, just a thought. I'm not against it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm just thinking about the whole thing. Does anyone have any comments about that? I mean, as far as, Ed makes some very good points as far as, keeping it with FEMA. And then we can let those know that are going to build that they can look at the Pinellas vulnerability assessment. Yes.
Just real quick, I haven't heard anything that would honestly benefit. If it affected our FEMA rates, besides on an individual basis, what your flood insurance is going to be, like you say, because your elevation, but that's house to house, right? And that's personal choice on how high I want to build my house and what insurance I want to pay. In my mind, FEMA's insuring most of this country. If they're okay with their numbers, I'm sure there's some pretty bright folks at FEMA also that have figured this out. I just don't really see any benefit from a citywide, it's a mandate. higher than FEMA when you have the opportunity to build whatever height you want. I mean, that's your individual choice. Like I said, you can build it 15 feet if you feel so froggy, right? But, you know, but from a planning standpoint and, like Ed said, simplicity standpoint, I mean, FEMA gives us the guidelines to go by and let the people decide after that.
Mark, come back up one more time, and then that'll be it, I won't be good. So, I understand the different models and the data and these could be storms that they use, and I do realize that it's been many years since they did the study. Why, but why, they're lower, so, do you have any comment on that?
Well, I guess
Speed and things like that?
Sure, yeah, and I guess, and just to make that clarification, you know, we're not advocating, you know, one way or the other, right? You know, so I didn't have any direct involvement in either model preparation, right? So we're simply just kind of showing you the results of what those elevations worked out to. But as far as an opinion either way, I guess I wouldn't have one to offer tonight based off of the research that we've done up to this point.
Okay. Joe?
I did a clarification. So, but am I understanding that correctly? It's not an old FEMA map. It's the brand new FEMA map. They just stopped their data in 2012 when they did their calculations.
Exactly.
But it's their brand new. It's the one that just got implemented in October.
Correct.
Right, October 1.
Correct.
Or August, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm just seeing the insurance levels now. And they're not pretty. But, okay, so they're both new maps. It's just the data they use. They're under different time constraints.
Correct, and I don't have the exact timeline on the FEMA process or the project involved in that modeling, but I mean, it is, you know, both of them are large-scale, you know, projects. They take a long time, so I'm not sure about like exactly when it started and if, you know, if there were delays and that sort of thing as far as, you know, why their data was older.
Thank you. Anyone else with any questions? Yeah. Okay. All right, and what is the consensus of the commission for Greg?
We just keep kind of going down. I think we already know, and if we just go down the line and see.
I'd go with option A.
I agree. I'd stay the course, and I like Ed's suggestion of advising people, here's some other data, and then you have to make a decision between the build it.
Just a question. So no one at the county is twisting your arm saying like, you guys really got it?
Was the guy waiting out front?
Actually, no, because all the commissioners, all the commissions in the county are evaluating this.
Yeah, everybody's struggling with the same thing. But to answer your specific questions that you asked me, there has been some pressure by the county for some reason to.
Because they did this study and they need to.
Yeah.
See some.
Yeah. And like I said, just for the last thing, I'll just as a reminder, like I said, we will have a minor, we have an ordinance that will bring November, December, that some minor tweaks that we mandated by FEMA to make and do. Is it modular houses or mobile homes?
Mobile homes versus modular buildings.
They don't think our definitions are clear enough, so we gotta clear those up. So when that comes back, don't freak out and say, well, I thought we weren't gonna do that. County, that has nothing to do.
Sorry, has the county ever done a vulnerability assessment before? Is this their first? We know.
Good point too.
We don't know.
Okay.
Thanks.
I feel like we should be going with the county, and I'm just gonna put that on the record. So I just want to say that, so everyone just so you know that, okay? All right, with that, we will close the work discussion and other business. I just want to mention that to the commission that I had a meeting with Senator Ed Hooper, kind of went over, he's one of our Clearwater senators, state senators, and went over some of the issues that we have, red tide, Bee Tree Nourishment, which not a lot he can help us with that, but I just wanted to let him know what the issues were as far as the easements. And I talked to him at great length about the short-term rentals because he is with the cities. Senator Hooper was a Clearwater commissioner for many years, and so he gets the home rule and understanding of the local involvement, and he is promised to take it up there. He said it's not easy being in one of the lone men on the totem pole. I did mention one of the, Dan had found that there is a bill in favor of cities with the short-term rentals. I think all of us were sent it, so I did talk to him a little bit about that, and just a really great conversation. He said to invite all of us up this year. There'll be the first time that, last year you could not meet with the senators or the House, and and then next week, there's a group of us who will be meeting with Representative DeSantis. So we're going to start going around and we're trying to be proactive on some of the issues that the city is having. I talked at length with him about the flood insurance issue that we think we're going to have, and I just wanted you to know that I'm making the rounds doing that. And all of you can do that too, and call your senators and House people. And with that, I believe that is the end of our legislative and our other business, and I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Motion second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Awesome.